It's time to begin the podcast. Welcome to The Vault. Dan, it's time to salute Terry the Triceratops.
Here we go.
Corinne, you need to salute Terry, and if he's going to bless this podcast, he will give us his acknowledgement.
Oh, he doesn't know who you are, Corinne. You better introduce yourself to him.
This is slightly awkward.
No, everything's relying on this, Corinne. Come on!
OMG, Terry, it's me. It's Corinne.
Oh, yeah, he's saluted back. Gosh.
He knows who you are.
Yeah, you're very good. Everything's okay.
Everything's happening today. You can hear drums in the background.
Why?
It's just the wild drums. It's because it's a Friday and our youth ministry is about to begin and they're practicing.
Has this ever happened to you when you were supposed to start at, 3 o'clock and
We're
it's now 5 to 5? We're actually supposed to start at 11, so...
It's been quite a day, everybody, but welcome to the Vault podcast. Today joining us is Funny Man Dan, all the way from Tasmania, Dave Wakerley, all the way from Christchurch, New Zealand, and Corinne, who is all the way from
Hillsdale?
From Sydney.
From? Maroubra?
From Sydney.
13.
But where I did grow up, was downtown Bankstown.
Oh, Bankstown girl. She's a
Beat-down?
Bankstown girl.
That's not a song, Dan.
Living-
Jess McLean is not with us today because she's an important lady with important things to do.
She actually got a last-minute text from the Queen, and she's attending.
The only person who would supersede us.
Yes, and she's attending to important Queen business.
Amazing.
That's wonderful.
Well, let's begin by talking about the Vault. If you're joining us for the first time, the reason we do this Vault podcast is because the Vault is where you put all your valuables. It's where the knowledge is found. It's where everything valuable in your life is hidden. And so you're coming to the Vault to receive that wisdom, not necessarily from us, but from our guests like Corinne today, and from people who are far more knowledgeable than us. But as we say every week, welcome to the team.
Welcome. So we're actually part of their team. So you got to do a little job interview. Why should they hire you as part of you?
Great.
Because they've already accepted us. But
we're part of the team because
wow.
most pastors around the world, especially in smaller churches, Corinne, are by themselves. There's no other kids staff. At Hillsong Kids, we're lucky to have a big staff of Hillsong Kids team and pastors, but they may not. And so we are their team and we are in their team and they are in our team. And together we are one big team.
We are one big happy team.
yeah, but
I love that.
we kind of even though they might not have many people, that doesn't mean they have to accept you. Like,
true.
can you give us 3 qualities?
Well, I'm not here to sit and look pretty.
Okay,
That's
that's good.
You're
Here to work,
contribute.
here to
That's good.
contribute. That's a great one. What are the 2 other?
Well, since we're talking about kids ministry, I've been in kids ministry for 13, going on 14 years.
Oh, now is there? You don't have to tell us your age, but can you give us your birth decade? Because I'm an 80s. You're a child of the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
If you,
I'm pushing on the late 80s.
Okay, so you're still in the 80s.
Yep.
Pushing
That's
on the late
very
80s.
good.
Is
Okay,
that a good
that's
thing
good.
or a
No,
bad
it's a good thing. Yeah, you're one of us young people.
relatable.
You're on the young side of the group.
I'm on the young
This is
side.
the young side. This is the old
Yeah,
man side.
that's
over
the
here.
old. You and
The
the,
old
other
man
person
side.
who was there, but he's dead now because he's so old.
So old. Yeah, if you've been here since episode 1,
Yeah, you would have noticed.
not true.
God bless Cecil.
Cecil.
Oh, Cecil.
Terry the Triceratops took his place.
Yeah.
So that is why we do this podcast. That is who we do this podcast for. So if you're new to this podcast and you're watching this either on YouTube or you're listening to it on one of the places you get your podcast, then please subscribe. Please, number one, before we even get started, we are desperate for your questions.
Yes, well, the whole reason we exist is to answer said questions. And if you're having those questions, it's going to be a lot of fluff.
A lot of fluff, not much content, but a lot of giggling, right? And hey, maybe people need to have a laugh.
Yes, exactly.
So, but now we're going to get to the questions. I do have some questions today, Dan. We have had some emails to the email of this podcast, which is
thevault@hillsong.com.
thevault@hillsong.com.
Now, when you said many emails, some emails, you mean one with multiple questions.
Multiple questions. We have. Don't give away all of our secrets, Dan.
I was going to say.
But the reality is, we need your questions. We want to hear from you. We want to hear also your wins, especially. For example, here's a good thought. I've never talked about this on the podcast before, but let's just say maybe you're using some of Hillsong Kids praise and worship music.
Ooh, very
We want to know what your
choice.
favorite songs are. What are the songs that your kids are into? That's a good way to engage with it. For example, if you're using Hillsong Kids Big Curriculum.
Yes.
Which
another
series are
excellent
you
choice.
in at the moment?
Yes.
If you are in a series, then you'll definitely know Funny Man Dan and his antics. And
All
you'll
of them?
definitely- All of the antics.
I have 3 antics, and I
there
share
he
them
does in
regularly.
every video. In fact, that's it. He's just 3 antics put together.
Yeah.
So that would be really, really good. So not just for questions, but for more. let us know where you are in the world as well. So what we're saying is we're just desperate for your attention and want to hear from you. At the Vault, are you trying to put it up on the screen, Dan?
No, I'm trying to get my mouse back.
Oh, you've lost your mouse.
No, there it is.
It's on the screen.
Yeah, I need to get
if
it
you're
back
listening
onto.
to the podcast,
there it is.
If you're listening to the podcast, I apologise for Dan, but he's trying to find his mouse on the screen.
I found my mouse.
Dan's
found it.
desperate. Dan's lost his mouse.
He's lost his mouse. So that is. So let me see. We've talked about feedback. We've talked about why we're doing this. We are now going to talk about
When you get old, Corinne, you have mental checklists, but you don't have them in. They don't exist in your mouth, in your mind. They exist in your mouth.
Now,
See,
I
so
need to
I'm
say,
learning.
It is.
I'm learning
Yeah,
right now.
yeah.
It's
Dan
without people, I'm
Liancha,
learning.
speaking of fact checking,
Yes.
Dan is the resident fact checker.
Ooh, make your facts.
So let's just talk a little bit about what we're doing at the moment in the
Okay.
life of our church. Well, we're kind of in the same. We've got a next generation showcase coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Which is going to be all of our kids in our adult services. That's still coming up. It's still how many 2 weeks away? It's not this
Yes.
weekend, is it? No.
I think it's 3. It's
Two or
Kids
three.
Fest
It's
weekend.
the Kids Fest
Kids
weekend.
Fest weekend. So we have a Kids
So we
Fest
just have
coming
this
up.
small, this tiny
Yeah.
event called Kids Fest coming up
100%.
first.
Well, that actually starts very soon, Kids Fest. It starts this week.
And now I've thought, here's my thought for this, because we it's coming up soon and we'll be talking about what happened on the day and celebrating it. But let's just, before we do questions, let's just talk about how that day works
Yeah.
and how it's put together and what is it. Because a lot of churches around the world may do something called a VBS, which is during the summer holidays, generally in North America. Or you may do, it's Christmas time, you may have an event that you put on.
Yeah.
There are lots of different events that we have during the year. For Hillsong Kids and Hillsong Church, we have Hillsong Conference, the big daddy, the granddaddy of them all.
You cannot get much bigger. 2,000 children
Couple of
come to
thousand
that,
kids.
and then probably 30,000 people in the adult minding service next door.
Yes. And then there's a young and free for our youth. That's a giant event. We have Colour Conference, our women's event, and not so many kids there because it's during school.
Yeah.
School's on during Colour Conference, but for us, there's a lot of kids that come from other states, so we don't get to see our kids maybe that come on weekends, but we get to see a
All
lot of
about
other
international guests.
kids. International
Bring their
guests.
kids.
Because they are travelled all the way to come to Colour Conference, and that's in March in our spring, end of summer.
Hang
end
on.
of summer.
Yeah.
Yes, Dan?
I was just going
Are
to
you
fact
gonna
check that.
Fact check when Sisterhood
It is
Colour-
It is March.
It's March.
It is March.
The last one finishes on the 15th, I believe. There's 2.
There's 2 of them, and then both those events go around the world. But that's where we're done
Hands
because
off.
we say here in
We
Australia.
wave.
We
Bye.
We say bye.
Peace right out of there.
So Sisterhood travels around the world, Hillsong Conference, but there is a little season that happens before we get into summer. And it's called Kids Fest, and it's called Encounter. Is it still called
Encounter
Encounter
Fest,
Fest?
yep.
Encounter Fest, and that is for our kids. We have one full day of fun at our Hills campus location. And for us, this is maybe what you'd call our kind of VBS.
In fact, we have a trailer. Should we show the trailer?
We could do that. Here's a clip.
Jesus, you are my best friend, and you will always be. Nothing will ever change that. Jesus, you are my best friend, and you will always be. Nothing will ever change that. 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 Nothing will ever change that.
That was the clip of Kids Fest.
Yes. Corinne's a little bit shocked because she didn't see
did not.
anything come up.
We didn't explain what happens to
I
Corinne.
didn't expect the video to be so amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
no.
Oh, man,
So
look at
impressed.
she's
It's amazing.
So impressed.
So that is Kids
She's
Fest
very
for
good.
us. We've done lots of things at Kids Fest. Album recordings, going
Yes.
back to 2008-9. We've done album recordings at Kid Fest. We've done the Funny Man Dan live DVD.
Oh,
Cha-ching.
I remember that.
still
Product
very funny.
placement,
Yeah,
still
yeah.
very funny. We
We
talked
don't
about,
earn money from product placement when it's our own products.
no, but Dan, we do need to talk about giveaways.
Oh, yes.
Could you fact check if we can do a giveaway? Like, just if you could just do a fact check right now.
Can we...
I know you.
I'm on the Magic 8-ball side.
No. No, I want to know if it's possible, Dan, because we could give away maybe some codes to your DVD.
Yes. Well, the answer is doesn't seem likely.
Okay.
No, the answer is yes. We actually have
Can I do a giveaway right now? I've got an idea for one. Can I do a
100%.
giveaway?
We have up to 5,
Well, maybe. Okay.
12,
So here's what we're going to do.
30. You're the boss.
Top two. No, here's
Top
what we're
two.
going to do.
Top two.
This is how we'll get questions.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so we are going
free
to
stuff.
give away Funny Man Dan, the digital edition of his Funny Man Dan live DVD. Mm-hmm. And so that is, you'll get a code. You'll be able to redeem that online and download it for your own kids. Mm-hmm. It's not available in shops. Okay, maybe it is.
No,
but
it is available in the shop.
The DVD is.
You can go to the link and buy it for
Correct.
$10, but this will be free for you
Free
if
for
you win.
We want to give a free show for you, and we're going to choose the top two. What do you call them? Top two
Questions?
Questions. That's what we call them. The top two questions, as judged by me and maybe Funny Man Dan. We're gonna choose that and give you a free Funny Man Dan live for your kids.
Dave, I just asked
That's amazing.
Magic 8 Ball, can we give away? Question mark, and it said Outlook good.
Outlook is great.
Yeah.
Because I talked about prizes last week, and we need to come through with the goods. So this is what we do, and it's not even questions. Give us your comments. Tell us what's going on in your worlds. We're on your team. You're on our team. Let us know what's going on. Two live DVDs going away to next what do you call it? Episode.
Yeah.
My words aren't.
I'm submitting
What is the
questions.
word? My words are
They're not going from here to here.
no.
Yeah.
They're missing.
Story of my life.
We all lost words.
All words are lost.
Words are hard.
We don't need words if we're typing questions.
So that's what we are doing at the moment in our church.
I have a question.
Well, do we need to explain what happens during the day at Kids Fest?
Oh, okay.
People might be interested.
Yeah, great.
It's not just a few hours.
Do you want to hear
We're
my
talking
question?
8 till nighttime. Go. What's your question?
What happens during the day at Kids Fest?
So let's put the logistics in perspective here. We have a number of locations around Sydney. So a Hills campus, which if you've ever watched a Hillsong live DVD, you've probably seen that location. Thousands of
convention
people,
centre,
big
yep.
Convention centre. The city location, there's 2 locations here in the city. And then there is a inner west, we've got a greater west, we've got a southwest, we've got a Wollongong, we've got up to Newcastle. These are all locations around Sydney, and we bring them all together at the convention centre at our big location out at the northwest of Sydney. What we do then, all the locations will come on a bus generally from their location. So parents just have to drop their kids off at the bus. They hop on the bus, they travel to Hills, they spend the day there. They start off big carnivals. We're talking big rides. Huge rides. The biggest we can possibly get.
Massive.
Everyone saw in the promo that they
That's
recently
right.
saw.
You've seen the
All the bouncy
carnival,
castles,
bouncing, all the great fun
rides.
things that we're going to do. Then we have praise and worship, a rally for all of our different age groups, where we do preaching, where we do praise and worship, where we talk about God and pray for kids and minister to them. Then we will do things like shows. Funny Man Dan's going to do a show.
Yes, he will.
We've got other friends of ours. Sally's going to do a show. One of
Sally
our team-
Super Duper?
Sally Super Duper is going to do a show. There's a lot of fun things happening throughout the day. There'll be food available. Our Hills kids get to hang around a little longer, but most of our other locations then at some point in the afternoon will head back to their own location.
Well, the Hills bus has less distance to travel.
It does,
Gets
because the
on
parents
and
come
does a
directly
loop.
and pick
Yeah.
them up from Hills. So they get to be picked up and get to play a little bit longer, but you're pretty much back at your location by 6, 7 o'clock.
That's
the next morning.
So, so parents come and go to their same location, drop off and pick up us at the same time. So it's a full day, and it's much cheaper than paying for childcare or paying for most school holiday programs.
Any program. It's
So
way
it's,
cheaper.
so it's like a whole day VBS, and
Yeah.
VBS
Yeah.
stands for.
Vacation.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, so glad.
VBS. Vacation.
Come on, you got this,
Yeah.
Corinne. We believe in you.
The only word that's coming to my mind is barrister for B. I don't know why.
Yeah, that is correct. Barrister. Yeah, and the last
barrister
word.
school.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Teaching them
Vacation barrister school.
What would we teach them?
Bible. Oh my god! Guys, this,
Oh, dear.
okay, it's Vacation
Oh,
Bible
my
School.
gosh.
Yeah.
It stands for
Barrister school.
Vacation Bible
Vacation
Barrister school is
Now you're talking about barista
different-
like a coffee or a barrister like
No,
a
the
lawyer?
lawyer.
Look, I don't know. Let's just
Lawyer in the High
just
Court.
Get all that out. It was Bible.
So that's, and of course I don't know why we would call it a school, because they've just had weeks of school. We don't want another school.
that's
They're
what
in
they
school
call it.
holidays.
But that's what it's called. Hopefully you don't call it that at your church. Call it something fun. Call it the Vacation Barista Society.
Teach them to make coffee.
Call it something else. Kids don't want to go to school another day of the year.
They
So-
also don't want to become baristas.
or barristers.
Barristers.
Maybe they do. We don't want to say that.
We don't know.
There'll be hundreds of baristas coming.
Yeah.
So let's move on to questions, everybody.
Please.
What is a barrister?
What is a barrister? By the way, is barrister, do they call that? Because I think different countries may not, like we're talking about America would call them a lawyer, right? Or
So a barrister is an independent
check.
specialist, advocate and advisor in law.
Yeah.
okay. So
So the difference between
We
a
have
lawyer
both.
and a barrister,
Yes.
they can be used interchangeably.
oh, okay. So not much. Thank you for the
But
fact
there
check.
is a big difference between the two. Specifically, barristers and lawyers are specialised in court litigation, but lawyers can refer to barristers or solicitors.
There you go.
amazing.
Is
It's
a
time
barrister and a barista spelt the same?
for no.
No. One of them serves the coffee to
Okay.
the barrister.
I'm going to spell them. Have you got them there in front of you? I want to see if I can test my spelling.
Yep.
Barrister.
That is barrister,
And
and-
barista is Barista.
Correct.
Oh.
Look at that. Good
Dave
spelling.
gets a prize.
He
Prize.
does.
I
You
get a little drink from my refreshing beverage.
You actually get a beautiful latte,
Yes.
an almond latte made by my local barrister.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for question number 1. Here we go. This is from Sarah, who's, as we know, is an Epic, one of our Epic team
Yep.
in Phoenix, in Arizona, in America.
And they all from Sarah?
So, no, I do actually have a bit of a selection here.
Oh, okay.
Because
Sarah from Sarah.
If you've been following this podcast, if you've been following this podcast, you will notice that I've been using a bunch of questions from our own team.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Remember that?
good.
So, question number 1. This is a good one. I like this one. Dan, you're going to help out with this one big time. What do you tell a child who thinks everything is boring? Assuming that the program is actually epic, how do I get them engaged? So the kid that reckons everything is boring, what do we do with that situation? I've got a couple of thoughts. Does anybody want to jump in first?
Oh, my thought is it's the same as an adult that just wants attention. The kid just wants attention.
Right. I hear you. So what do we do, but how do we help them through that? Because my thinking is this. I have encountered kids who are bored, and I've had on a number of occasions success in getting them involved in helping and doing something.
Yes.
Because there are legitimate kids that really don't want to sit still.
Yep.
Maybe Dan when he was a child. You definitely, Corinne, when you were a child. They want to be doing something.
That's right.
They want to be moving. Their little bodies need to be moving around. But we're also talking about kids that really would rather serve in a sense. Maybe not serve, but just do help out. Feel like they're part of the team. When I was a kid, I actually liked hanging out with the adults.
Yeah.
I would want to play games with card games or board games with adults because I enjoyed the company of adults. I was a very mature child, but I
course you were.
didn't mind. And to this day, I don't really like small talk. If we're going to have a conversation, let's get deep. You know what I'm saying? Let's go in deep. But that idea of kids maybe want something a little more to get their teeth into.
Yeah.
So I have had success involving them. Like, for example, on a number of occasions, if I'm getting up to speak to the kids, do a message for the kids, I'll say, listen, tell you what, I need your help during the message. Is it okay if I get you up the front with all the kids and you can do this one thing? I'll describe it to them. And that, on a number of occasions, has worked and really helped. But of course, yes, there are kids that just are there and maybe they are just not into it at all.
If you know the kid, if you know your kids, that's always helpful because you'll know exactly what flicks their little switch. But knowing your team, because you need to be able to communicate with your team, because if you are on the platform and you've got kids heckling you, being like, I'm bored, you suck, it's really hard
Wow,
for
that's
you.
the tough heckling.
It's
I haven't
really
had that heckle too much, Corinne.
it's just me. It's really hard for you to continue to engage the rest of the crowd of other kids because you don't want them all following because they follow pretty quick. So it's good for you to know your leaders, also be able to give them looks so that they
Right.
can step in and kind of
Totally. I think,
Hustle that kid out.
if you're getting heckled during your message, that's something you really want to avoid. As you said before, you want to
yes.
you want to
yes,
pre
yes.
everything. You want to
Pre-brief your team.
pre-brief them, which is not a word. It's just briefing. But that's my. By the way, Corinne, that's Dan and I. A lot of people like do
Have
pre-briefing
you heard of a pre-brief?
because a debrief is after the event.
Yes, that's right.
So what would you call the briefing beforehand? What
It's
would you
just
say?
it's a brief.
It's
It's
just
a
a
brief.
briefing.
Guys, it's a brief.
A pre-brief is a brief
It's a
before the
brief.
brief.
So you got a briefing before, a debrief after. There is no middle. You
There's
do the
no
event.
pre-brief.
So listen.
Well, there could be.
No.
A briefing before the brief. So if you and I said, "Hey, we're just going to have a little pre-brief
Okay.
before a brief,"
I feel like
that's fine. But no one ever does that.
No, that's what the briefing is for. Now listen, focus, Dave.
Focus.
So you want to establish and again, if you know your kids, Corinne, you're right. But I think again, challenging kids and going, listen. My favorite line is to say, "Only boring people get bored." And I've told that to my kids because really, if you're the kind of person who can generate their own imagination and
Yeah.
use their imagination, then you're never going to be bored.
That's right.
And that's kind of the idea behind it. That kids, you're challenging them to get rid of their own misconceptions about
Yeah.
their own lives, right?
Right.
And kids, and we're talking about kids who are entertained 24/7, potentially
Yes.
with devices and entertainment. And there's nothing better for a kid to be bored sometimes, not in church, but that idea of being okay with it. It's like sometimes
Brings out the creativity.
pain is good. You know what I mean? If you're going to lift weights, you got to do it till it hurts.
No
Otherwise,
pain,
it
no
doesn't.
gain, guys.
A little bit. There's a sense of that, right? You've got to push yourself.
Now you every year or a couple of times a year you switch off all electronics in your home.
Oh, we get a screen-free week.
And you've had some pretty amazing
Oh, it's the best.
outcomes from that.
You buy new board games.
Yep.
And you do a screen-free week. Now, Dan and we have a system in our house where we can turn off the internet. But I could literally turn off any room in the world. I could turn off my kids' internet right now.
Oh, do it. Like, do it. We'll watch them call you
They'll be
on a
texting.
Friday.
My teenage son will be texting me going, "Dad, did you pause me?" That's a bit harsh. So yes, Dan, that's a great point. Like watch happen. This is what happens with our kids. They go, "Oh my gosh, this is so painful," and then probably 20 minutes later, their imagination start to kick in because they've been bored, and all of a sudden then they'll either start picking on their brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
or they'll generate something to do. And if you've got, well, now maybe we can play a board game together. All of a sudden, that thing that was boring to them is
Yeah.
exciting. They go, "Oh, board game," because there's nothing better to do.
All they've got in life.
And I love board games. Are the best to play with your kids. The latest board game for us is Boggle.
Oh yeah,
Boggle
that's an oldie, but a good
An oldie, but you do a grid of letters, and you've got to make words out of a grid of letters. And for our older boys, they love that. And it's a really fun game, a very simple game. And you can play a round, 2-3 rounds, and you're in and out in 5 minutes.
So we were playing Monopoly Deal with my kids a bit, and then we realised after about 20 games we were playing it wrong, and we played it wrong on our TV show. That we
Really?
did. Well, when you play
You
an
mean on
action,
your
when you play
YouTube?
yeah. So
Oh.
when we play an action card, it doesn't become your money. You need to discard it. So you got to
Oh.
choose. So there's actually less
Oh,
money.
right.
So now the whole game's been
Oh my
reinvigorated because it's much
goodness.
harder.
It's much harder. Okay, if you would like to see Dan and I play Monopoly Deal, then it's on Funny Man Dan's YouTube channel. Check
Well,
that out. There'll be a link in the description, or
Actually, I think it'll be in Hillsong Kids.
It might be on
YouTube
Hillsong
channel.
Kids,
Who
I
yeah.
knows?
thought you were going
In
to
a
say
couple
that
of
your
weeks.
kids were so savage that you had to stop playing because it was Monopoly.
No, this is
No, Monopoly, as we've said in the board game, Monopoly is the worst game to play with your kids. Do not buy it.
Yeah.
It's terrible. But Monopoly Junior
is
and
great.
Monopoly Deal is great.
Deal's a
But-
card game.
But the original Monopoly is a terrible game.
It's
Your kids will hate
yeah.
board games if they play that.
Exactly, it's a terrible war game. So quickly, just got a little
fact check?
check and my little because I generally
A
kids
summary, you're
yeah,
summarising?
generally kids aren't bored when I'm speaking, and it's because I don't let them. So
Right.
for example, I got up on the weekend 2 weekends ago. I get there second service, for some reason there's beanbags
Right.
in the audience,
Right.
and I stopped. And I looked at them and I yelled, "Get rid of the beanbags!" And the kids thought it was funny, and I kind of grabbed it and threw them across the room,
Right,
and they were
right.
fighting for it. And then I got the pastor in, and I'm like, "Get the beanbags!" I said, "Start again," and I walked off. And I made her reset her thing because you give a kid a beanbag, oh, they're tired, it's the second service. No! They will instantly go into a passive mode where they're not
Right.
watching Netflix, they are there to engage
Yeah. Yes.
and actually not letting them be distracted.
Love it.
And actually having a hard line on that is thing. So if a kid is losing their plot, or they're sitting outside by themselves or walking around the room, I won't go on. I'll stop, I'll get
Yeah.
them in and get them sit down.
What's the point of doing it if they're not going to be
That's
listening
right.
to you?
Exactly, and they
Beanbag it.
will get a better experience the more we get into it. And so I want to encourage you. There's
Yes.
actually a study
Okay.
about how boredom can actually kill you.
Ooh.
Scientists
OMG,
have proven
guys.
that boredom is linked to early early deaths due to such things as heart attacks and strokes.
Right.
So
Is this real?
you are protecting your children by helping them through the boredom slump.
That's so
Wow.
cool. Do you think you could be a little more passionate about that, Dan?
Yeah, definitely.
Just maybe ramp it up a bit.
We'll give you a link to this randomly
Okay.
unvetted source.
All of our podcast listeners, if you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Music, all of the links will be in our YouTube video version of this podcast, just so you know. Because Corinne, as you know, people like to listen to podcasts.
That's true.
But we like to watch them. We want to see. We want us to see our. You know what? I'm losing my words again. But
Which
we
is
want
not
you to
great
see
for
our
a
faces.
podcast.
See.
No, we want you to see our faces. So we
I
highly
didn't
recommend you
realise
check
that.
out the YouTube version. We also put clips up of the YouTube version of anything we really say that we think is important. Question number 2. Can I have a jingle, Dan, while I look it up?
Sure. Ba 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 ba. Copyright stop. Ba 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 ba. Changing the song so copyright doesn't get me. Ba 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 ba.
Okay.
Copyright.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Don't even say the song that you were singing because that'll get copyrighted.
I don't know.
I actually don't think that was a song.
No, it is. It's the whole music, but it's like the boy and the girl of
Girl from
Denver.
Ipanema,
Look,
yes.
to be
Yeah,
honest,
girl from Ipanema. Okay, well now you said
I
it.
felt like I was in a lift. So
lift.
Yeah,
there you
exactly.
go.
I lifted your spirits.
Okay, now listen.
you up.
We're going to continuing. This is a bit of a theme developing here. Kids boredom.
Okay.
And here's my next question: is what do I do when a group of kids do not want to participate in KDGs? What is a KDG, Corinne?
It is a kids discipleship group.
She got that.
Wow.
A kids discipleship barista.
There was no B in there. She's not good with the B's.
So
ain't
a
good
small
with the
group for
Bs.
kids we're talking
Yes.
about. So we call them kids discipleship groups because our youth ministry has RDGs, and we're like, well, if they can have RDGs, radical discipleship groups, we can have KDGs, kids discipleship groups.
But
That's where it came from.
But much like Kentucky Fried Chicken, no
Yes.
one references it radical discipleship groups anymore. They just call it
RDGs.
Also,
RDGs.
kids connecting with kids and kids connecting with leaders
Oh, yes.
is very important
This is
in our ministry.
in our church. This
Very good.
I feel like if a child, a
is where it
teenager, is in a grade RDG,
Yeah.
their teenage. I'm going to give a percentage on this. Their teenage life is 27% easier.
Well,
Okay.
I'm still in contact with my
Yes.
RDG boys. Was it 15, 18
Most of
years
your
later?
RDG boys are now married.
Yep,
Wow.
serving in church.
Yep. There's
They're
one
doing
next
good.
door in the office just close to us.
There's one next door.
Little Nubsy who was on our staff now. And he was in your
There's
group,
one
maybe?
touring for United.
Yes, that's true. In Hillsong United. So Dan was a very good success rate.
There you go. See,
Yes.
I needed an RDG leader.
You
did, yeah.
Corinne was not in church too much as a teenager.
I wasn't at all.
She was definitely a participant in church later in life. Let's put it that way. So let's
Kids
talk about
discipleship groups,
let's
very
talk about what they mean and how you get kids involved with them. So for us at the curriculum that we do, Hillsong Kids Big, cha-ching, is I need like a sound effect every time I say
We're
a resource.
literally not getting paid to promote our own things.
I have sound effects. No.
No, okay.
No,
yeah.
I've
I'll
ruined
get you
it.
a cha-ching one.
I've ruined it. It's the wrong one. Can you get me a cha-ching?
Sure.
Okay. Now, we do a large group, small group curriculum.
Yes.
So we gather together in large group, praise and worship, preaching, teaching, offering, ministry, and we break up for our KDGs, our small groups. And that is can be the most impacting thing on a Sunday morning and can be the trickiest thing because if your kids are older, your boys, you've really got to work hard. So any thoughts on KDG engagement, Corinne?
Well, it all depends on the leader, I suppose.
Yes.
So if you are the one that is, like if you were the pastor of...
Yeah, well, put it this way: the leader is the solution or the problem.
Yes, that's right. That's
you
right.
can it's up to you to be the solution here. So
Yeah.
that's why it is such an important ministry.
So that's the number one. I think the number two is then also you just need to resource them correctly. So you can have someone who's uncomfortable or awkward, but if you've resourced them well with an icebreaker, like a game or how to talk to kids, because not everyone knows how to talk to kids and every age group is different. Voltage, like the years 5 and
Preteens.
6 at school is going to be very different to engaging a preschooler,
Absolutely.
for instance. So
Absolutely.
know what the boys like. Talk about Minecraft. Talk about
What they're
what's
into,
the other one? Fortnite. I don't play Fortnite, but I know Fortnite because
Yeah.
I'm in kids ministry.
Yeah.
You know? So
How long did it take you to learn Fortnite?
Well,
About
one
14
time-
days?
One time I sat and I watched
I'll pay
someone
that
play for like 2 hours.
Right.
And it was crazy because I in a blink of an eye, I was like, I thought it was 5 minutes. Next minute, it's 2 hours.
Right.
I'm like, I can't believe I just sat there for 2 hours
Wow.
and watched someone play Fortnite.
Amazing.
Anyway.
So
Meanwhile, your burrito was burnt that you were cooking.
burrito. Was it a barista make the burrito? Okay, so that's a really good thing. You really want to know what your kids are into.
Yeah.
And I would 100% recommend if you're with a regular group of kids every single week, or your leaders are,
Remember.
here's the best kind of leader. Remembers what
Yeah.
their kids are into.
Yes.
Write it down if you have to. What's up in this? Most kids, if they're playing sport, will have their finals at the same time, within the same 2 or 3 week span. So check out where they're placing in their finals. If you can, look up if they're in a certain. We have an Eastern Suburbs soccer league. So in Sydney, where my son plays soccer, there's an Eastern Suburbs soccer league.
Yeah.
You can look up who's doing what the results are online.
There you go.
And so you could literally follow what your kids are up to. If there's a ladder of how they're doing,
Yeah.
and if they're doing terribly, you can make fun of them if they're up for that. Like you say, it's not you, must be your team, right? Must be a bad team. Or for example, if they're an individual sport, one of my boys does junjutsu. Junjutsu.
Wow.
And so that's not exactly you're not competitive, you're just learning, but find out, what levels they're up to. So Dan, your girls have done some martial arts, and they got, what do they call them, tips?
Yeah, they get tips,
And
which is
belts.
like halfway between the next.
Level.
You need to get 4 tips to get to the next,
Right.
this next level. So that's really exciting. You want a yellow belt, but yellow belt with a white tip.
Yes.
Oh,
So there's 4 levels before the next belt. So figure out the levels that your kids, what they're into, and just write it down on your phone.
now I will add, you don't actually have to do a lot of research.
No.
You've just got to ask questions.
Yeah.
Right.
And then half your questions can be talking about the previous time. Okay, so and who did you beat? And now you're on a yellow belt. So what do you need next? And all that sort of stuff. That's really exciting. The other thing is meeting new kids. Just have a few names up your sleeve for things. So
Yeah.
for Minecraft, you want to know who Steve is. You want to know what a creeper is, and you want to know what are they playing a certain
Have
mode.
they got the diamond armor? That's
Diamond,
always a big
diamond
one.
armor.
Yeah.
And that's it. If you just mention one of those words, they'll start telling you all these things that you
Yes.
won't know anything about, and it's fine. It's literally like saying to a person in another language. Whenever I met anyone from Germany, I'd always call it, what part of Deutschland are you from? And then instantly they go,
Yes.
and they think you've been there and you grew up there, and they start telling you everything, and you're like, no, I know
Dan,
one word.
Let's give them some hints now.
Okay, yes, great.
So hints for this. So if it's a kid into Minecraft, you literally say, "Hey, have you ever managed to get the diamond armor?" That's a
Diamond
pretty
armor?
good start.
That's
if
right.
they're into Fortnite, ask them what their favorite skin is or what their favorite emote is.
Yep.
And if they say, "Can you actually dance that one?" because it might be a dance emote. Just those are 2 questions for them.
That's a very good one.
If they're into, a big one for the moment is the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
Yep. So
Marvel movies.
first, ask them if they've watched Endgame before you talk about Endgame.
Yes, no
Yes.
spoilers.
No spoilers.
But a lot of kids might be into those kind of movies, and just
so
say,
ask them who their favorite character
you
is.
say, my favorite superhero, my Spider-Man is probably like my favorite movie. This superhero movie recently was the Spider-Man drawn, the cartoon one.
Yeah, it's not in the MCU, Dave.
I know, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And if you
That's
don't even
Miles
know what
Morales.
Dan's saying, then
Yeah.
you don't know enough about the MCU. Corinne? Okay, she doesn't know what we're talking about, but the
I know
kids
what
might.
you're talking about, but I don't know the details.
So, but let's just say my favorite. You could literally say, I know it's not in the MCU, but I love Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, very good.
And you could say that. And if they know that, they know that you know more about the universe than their parents, right? Or whatever.
Here's the thing that
Oh,
I've
go,
discovered.
Corinne. Yes.
This is where you like to get deep. I have discovered that kids, yes, they speak, they talk, right, a language. But I think kids can communicate and can understand a lot more than adults do, far beyond language. So sometimes even if you don't know, like, I've had leaders go to me that are ESL, and they're like, I can't serve in kids because I don't really speak that well English, but I really love kids and I really want to. Is there anything I can do? And I say to them, like, you don't need to be able to speak good English to be able to work with kids. Like, you can do things. So, like, even with movies, like, if you don't know games and you don't know how to play all those games,
Right.
or you're going, you know what, this world is just way too big for me to kind of get into, to understand and learn all this new stuff about kids. Kids watch movies. Kids watch cartoons. There's something that a kid does that doesn't even necessarily have like language around it that you'll need to like learn. But if you just know, like if you, I don't know how to, I see ESL. I'm ESL. I'm not even ESL, but I'm ESL. But like, if you just watch one kid's movie, there's just one connection thing. You just got to find one connection thing with a kid.
Yep.
And you're in.
Yeah, totally.
They're not complicated. I think
No,
adults are complicated.
Dan,
just
can we
say-
fact check ESL?
ESL means English second language.
Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, talking about being a missionary into a foreign culture, Corinne, could you hold up our sponsorship here?
Wow.
Bam.
Oh, hang on.
Yes, Dan? What do you got? What are you looking up?
Cha-ching.
Oh, you've got the cha-ching. I need to put it on this board here so we can
you
play
can
it
press
back.
I know. I'm trying.
If only you knew. Sponsored today by the book If Only You Knew. Thanks, Dan. This is for you as a ministry leader, and we've talked about it before, but it's a brand new book out from Hillsong Kids, and the idea is this: we give this to every new leader in our ministry.
Yes.
It helps them give a bigger understanding of what kids ministry is all about because they probably haven't seen it.
That's right.
Now, before we finish up and wrap up today's episode, everybody, we need to get to know Corinne a little bit more.
Ooh, hot seat?
The hot seat.
Hot seat.
So we should do hot seats.
Let's do hot
Yeah.
seats.
What do we do for that? Do we just ask her questions?
We ask them, yes.
Hot seat questions. You should Google hot seat questions.
Best hot seat questions.
Um,
Oh, number one. How did your seat get hot? No, sorry.
Why is your seat hot? Oh, Dan.
Is it uncomfortable
amazing.
sitting there?
Okay, amazing. Let's go with question number one is, well, Corinne, you are at a location in our
Yes.
church which is pretty big, as in it's one of the larger locations here in the city of Sydney.
Yes.
We are dealing with a location that is a lot more students and young people than kids, so the percentage of children in this location is perhaps between 9 and 12%, whereas if you're a church in the suburbs, that could be as high as 20-25%, especially in America. So I want you to tell me, is there anything you've noticed working here in the city with families, if you're in a urban situation, have you noticed anything that maybe some of our suburban locations wouldn't have to deal with as much as we do in the city? It's a hot seat question.
Wow, that is a hot seat question. I feel the heat.
Yep.
I think just not fighting against sporting
Okay.
activities
Right.
has actually been a big thing for me. I think a couple of years ago, I was like, how can I make kids choose church over sport and families and parents? And then I don't know if it's location-wise because it's the eastern suburbs. I don't know how to say it's not bougie, but I suppose it's the bougier area
Okay.
in Sydney.
It's well off.
Bougie, so yes, thank you, Dan, for the fact check.
Yeah.
So if people are going to pay for
speak Korean.
sports to have their kids in sports,
They're paying a lot of
it is
money.
what it
They
is.
pay
And
Cristiano Ronaldo
that's
to
right.
train them.
You actually can't fight it. So I've found that just sort of working alongside with it has actually, maybe it's even been a mindset for me, but it's changed the game for me because I've connected with those families in a different way. And I'm seeing 2 years
Right.
later, after making that choice, I'm seeing the health in that family.
Right, good.
And not necessarily because of anything I've done or said, but it's more like I've partnered with the family. And then it brings me back to the whole point of me doing this is I'm not doing it by myself and I'm not doing it just for the kids. I'm actually partnering with families. As kids pastors, what we do is we are partnering with families. We want healthy families. So what was your question?
Well, some of these
It was
just
about a hot seat.
some of these are just to get you to talk, and that was great.
That was really, really good.
If you only get 3 words to describe yourself, what are they?
Oh, wow.
I was going to say hot seat.
Hot? Okay, hot.
Okay.
And
Wait,
seat?
No. Okay.
Okay, one more.
I would say it loud.
Loud, yep. That's fair.
None of it. Dan and I did. You noticed that Dan and I didn't go, no, not at all. What are you talking
I
about,
would
Corinne?
say loud.
I feel like we need a punishment for phones going off, though.
Well,
definitely.
my phone didn't go off, but it's connected to
I've
my...
even silenced
computer.
my phone before. And
It's
I
connected to my
away.
computer.
Oh my, even mine was on silent, Dan.
I don't know. I think loud, loud, and loud.
Okay.
Loud, loud, and louder.
Amazing. Well, thank you for joining us on this podcast, episode number 4 of The Vault.
Wow.
Please subscribe if you are listening on Apple, on Pod. What, Dan, you've broken
No,
it.
I've broken it. There you go.
I thought you were going to go to like a subscribe screen. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is new.
Yeah, yep,
With the
sure.
subscribe screen.
But we really would love you to subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're going to put a lot of things up on the YouTube channel. We have a Hillsong Kids one for kids. We have Hillsong Kids Leadership Plus, which is for adults and grown-ups and parents. And we have Funny Man Dan, which is for your kids. Those are our 3 main channels. We have the podcast. We would love you to connect on every single one of those. Or also check out, if you want to check out the book, If Only You Knew, there are some information about it at hillsongstore.com. And I think that's all we need to say. Make sure you like and subscribe. Funny Man Dan, have you got something to finish us off with? He's trying to put something up on the screen. If you're listening, it's not working. I'm getting a little embarrassed. I'm just killing time. I'm talking. I'm saying words in a certain order.
Saying words in a certain order.
Dan,
don't I finish with something? Don't I normally finish with something?
What do you usually finish with?
Like some wisdom.
Wisdom. Or you can finish with some wisdom. Corinne, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
You'll definitely, as you know, in this show, that's our first. You're officially our first guest. Because Jess is away. Like you're literally the first one. We'll be having more guests and we'll be having more specific topics. But Dan, can I close this off?
Blessed are those who can laugh at themselves, for they shall never cease to be amused.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.